Live service games suck. Right, guys? Everyone agrees. Just look at the top results here on YouTube. This is an incognito search, so no account algorithm influences here. Nor did I skew the results by typing the words bad or sucks. No, I just searched live service games, and this is what comes up. It could have been positive or negative, but they are all very negative. Why is that? Well, because live service games suck, right? Wait 1 second. If live service games are so bad, why do they make up 4 of the top 5 highest concurrent, most played games of all time on Steam? In fact, if you search daily concurrent player counts at pretty much any point, most certainly somewhere between 70 to 80% of them will be live service. If these games suck, why are they attributed as a major factor for the huge growth in player numbers the industry has seen over these past 10 years? And if live service games suck, why are gamers spending more time and money than ever before on them? I mean, for real, how many times have you heard or known of someone who has hundreds, if not thousands of hours played in a live service game? I know myself have that amount of time clocked in a few of them. And we're not just playing these a lot, we are spending a lot too. You got companies like EA citing their shift to live service focus as being the reason for their record-breaking growth in revenue and player retention over these last several years. So many of the most popular games are live service, gamers are spending more time playing them, and companies are making more money than ever before because of them. So how can live service games be considered bad? Now, one possible answer is to just be entirely dismissive of the millions and millions of people playing them and make claims like they're not actually enjoying these games, they're not having fun, they don't really like live service, they're all just brainless hamsters running on a wheel, fueled by FOMO and chasing that next dopamine peak generating reward. But boy, is that one heck of a claim, and I don't really think that's the case. While the truth is, yeah, many of these games are designed and monetized in absolutely awful, manipulative, and often predatory ways. In fact, I would go as far as to say some of the worst practices to have been introduced into the hobby of gaming from a monetization to a design standpoint go hand in hand with the live service model. And for that reason, I agree that live service games, especially today's iterations, they do suck. That said, for all of the bad, they can also be some of the best, most engaging, and longest lasting forms of entertainment due to both their tendency to be multiplayer and the variety of experiences that brings, but more so due to the fact that successful live service games get constant, regular updates, adding new content that keeps them fresh for years to come. This is the main selling point, the golden promise of the live service model. When done right, it is a boon for players. When done wrong, well, that's part of what has led us to where we are right now. Live service games are everywhere. You can't escape them. It is an oversaturated market and has gotten to the point where even traditionally single-player franchises are now being shoehorned into live service experiences. And worst of all, most of them are doing it wrong, which typically results in their failure, the eventual closure of the game, and sometimes even the shutting down of the studio that made it. I, for one, am both exhausted but also disappointed with how live service games have turned out. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Remember, we didn't get here out of the blue. There is a reason why these games are so massively popular, a reason why lots of people play and enjoy them, and it isn't just the psychological manipulation that goes into some of its design. That is part of the answer, but there's also a value answer. People like these games, myself included. I've been a fan of this style of gaming since all the way back to before they were called live service. Asheron's Call, EverQuest, and eventually the World of Warcraft are some of the earliest examples of live service games that I personally played, and boy, was there a lot to love. One of the initial selling points for me back then, in the late 90s and early 2000s, was the introduction of these shared multiplayer worlds. For MMOs, it was right in the name, massive multiplayer online game. This was a big change of pace from what I was used to. For the most part, the games that we played around this time, they were all single player. They'd come with some sort of a narrative focused, usually linear campaign that once finished, barring playing through it again, meant that you were done with the game. Now, sometimes we would get like split screen co-op or local multiplayer, which would add more longevity. Halo and GoldenEye were two of my early favorite examples of this. And also, it was around this time where we started to see more and more online lobby-based earliest multiplayer games like the original Counter-Strike, StarCraft and Warcraft, or Age of Empires, but it was those early live service games, those MMOs, that ushered in an entirely new type of experience. Massive worlds with hundreds or thousands of players all running around simultaneously. It was magic, honestly, or at least it seemed that way. They really delivered a truly special experience with those massive, seamless multiplayer worlds. In fact, it's this element of MMOs that is one of the main reasons why I still, to this day, keep going back to the genre. It really is something special, and I credit, all thanks to live service games and the live service model, we got what we know of as MMOs. But while those earliest iterations of live service were, and often still are, either multiplayer or shared world, that alone is not a defining characteristic of the live service model. The thing that really truly makes a live service game a live service are the updates. If you go back and take a look at nearly every game prior to the live service model, they all had one thing in common. The game as it was when you purchased it was the game that you got for good. All of its content stayed the same, yes, but also so did any of its issues. Like if a game had bugs, glitches, and broken levels, that was just something you had to deal with. While many people lament the days where buying a game meant buying a finished product, it did also in reality have its downsides. Say for example, you found a game that you really love. You're having a blast playing it, but eventually you will have completed the campaign, done all of the side stuff, unlocked all the progression, and defeated every boss. Or in other words, you'll have beat the game. And then what? Well, you could replay it and try like a different approach or look for things you missed the first time. And if there was local or server-based multiplayer, those would add some more playtime. But otherwise, you almost never got new stuff, and you certainly didn't expect new stuff back in that day. And worst of all, yes, if a game was broken in any way, it was just broken. You just had to deal with that. In those days, you were left waiting for the developer to make and sell either an expansion or a full-on sequel, either of which often took several years to complete. That was up until live service games came along and said, what if there's another way? What if the game that you love right now just keeps getting better with fixes and balance patches every couple of weeks, polishing the game further, getting rid of bugs, and enhancing quality of life features? What if there were big content updates that added things like new playable areas, dungeons, loot, questline, and what if that happened every few months? And what if, say, every other year instead of every 3 to 4 years, we released a huge expansion, adding brand new features, mechanics, and enough new content to basically be considered a whole new game? And what if all of this just kept on happening year after year after year? That pitch was a really good one, and that is what sold me early on MMOs, on that first iteration of live service. In those days, it was a dream come true and seemed to have little downside. Take World of Warcraft, for example. I make no bones about it. I loved that game. I was obsessed with it and played it for many years. Back in 2004, 2005, I was playing it daily. All of my friends were playing. We had constant new fixes, updates, and content for us to look forward to. It's important to understand the enormity of the amount of content and updates these games got and how that compared to other games at the time. In the first year alone, from when World of Warcraft released in November 2004 all the way to the end of 2005, the game got an insane amount of content. These were full named patches from patch 1.2 all the way up to 1.8, and these added the following content. We got 2 new dungeons, Maradon and Dire Maul. We got 2 raids in Zul'Gurub and Blackwing Lair. There were a bunch of new outdoor raid bosses added, Kazak, Azurgos, and then all of the green dragons. We got a whole new zone in Silithus. There were new quest hubs added in the Searing Gorge as well as Hinterlands. There was also a bunch of new features. Small things like the ability to hide your cloak and helm graphics. They also added the new social system of meeting stones for grouping up with other players. They added the PvP honor system, and along with that, they added battlegrounds. They added a buyback item option for the vendors. There was also a bunch of different new progression systems added just within that first year. The new reputation of the Shendralar, Zandalari tribe, and Cenorian Circle. Footlockers were added for rogue pick locking to help make that a little easier. They added the Paladin and Warlock epic mount quest. They added new cloth turns in to earn reputation in major cities. They added the tier 2 set of armors as well as other armor sets. There was a bunch of events added throughout the course of that year. The first seasonal holiday was the Feast of Winter Veil. Beyond that, we got Children's Week, the Dark Moon Fair, Stranglethorn Fishing Tournament, PvP holidays for bonus honor, and in the fall we had Hollow's End. And then also, besides bug fixes and balance patches, they had a bunch of various updates, like adding new graphics for the dungeon and raid set armor. They added new appearances for the level 60 mounts, and they also even added new customization options for hunters' pets. All of that in a single year. It was unheard of at the time in any other genre of gaming. You just did not get this level of post-launch support anywhere else, to the point where it made it feel like there wasn't much reason to play any other game, because this game that I was enjoying, seemingly never ended. By the time I got through all of the existing content, there was another round just around the corner. It was crazy, and like I said, it seemed to have little downside. But there was a downside, and this became more and more obvious as time went on with the live service model. The fact of the matter is, someone's got to pay for all of this new content to be developed, and that someone is us, and that base box price just wasn't enough, was it? Many of those early live service games via MMOs came with the mandatory monthly subscription. So after buying the game, you also had to pay somewhere around $15 a month to actually play it. Now, at first, it actually didn't seem like a big deal because, like I said, the game basically replaced all others for me at the time. So $15 a month was a bargain, because prior to that, on average, I was personally spending more. Let's take a look at, say, between the years of 1998 and 99. My game playing and buying habit looked pretty much exactly like this. I had picked up and played Metal Gear Solid, Half-Life, StarCraft, Zelda Ocarina of Time, Baldur's Gate, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, Trespasser, Spyro, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, GTA 2, Siphon Filter, and Medal of Honor, all within the span of 1 to 2 years, and there is definitely more games that I forgot to add to the list, but I absolutely bought and played all of those games between 98 and 99. All of that money that I made working summer jobs was put to use throughout the year, mostly purchasing new games, along with some magic booster boxes and ramen noodles. Pretty much, that's pretty much my spending habit of those years. So yeah, when MMO showed up and a monthly subscription of $15 for a game that kept on getting bigger and better, awesome. Like, sounds great. I was totally pleased. And you know what? Had things stayed that way, can you imagine? Can you imagine? But that's not what happened, as we all now know. While MMOs may have popularized the live service model, it certainly didn't stop there. We started seeing other genres take a crack at the live service structure. Games like Team Fortress 2, League of Legends, Rock Band, and Battlefield 2142. These are some early examples of other live service games that I played in between 2005 and 2009. And then things really took off in the following years. From 2010 to 2015, live service came to pretty much every single other genre of game. StarCraft 2, Need for Speed World, Darkspore, Age of Empires Online, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Dota 2, Marvel Heroes, FIFA World, Destiny, WildStar Firefall, H1Z1, and at this point, within this window, it was pretty obvious the cat was out of the bag and live service was the new way of things. Where we are today, it seems like a majority of new games being released are some variation of live service. They're always online with regular updates and post-launch support and content roadmaps, all in exchange for additional monetization on top of the base box price. And you know, all of these live service games just went with that simple once per month subscription fee. That's what happened. Same, there's no other monetization. It was just subs. No. You know, things got much, much worse. As live service games changed, as they expanded into other genres and evolved, so did their methods of asking for money. Now, I don't need to run through the history of live service monetization. Let's just talk about where we are today. Right now, most every single new live service game has some combination, if not all, of the following. A cash shop with a variety of things on offer to purchase. You've got cosmetics, which I would say are the most benign, but even that people take issue with because, hey, if a cosmetic is in the shop, it could have very well just been a free unlock within the game itself. So removing cosmetic unlocks and a lot of that progression in game, people don't like that. But that is still the most benign of offerings, because after cosmetics, you got convenience features, which are sold to offset the built-in inconveniences that they put in the game, because they wouldn't have to sell you convenience features if they weren't freely admitting that parts of their game are inconvenient as they were designed. And then the most egregious of all in cash shops are, of course, the pay-to-win games where you can purchase some sort of an in-game advantage over other players, be that via gear, currency, buffs, or resources, boxes, something that gives you a distinct advantage in exchange for real world money. And it didn't stop at cash shops, because we of course have loot boxes, systems where you can purchase a box with a random chance to get one or multiple rewards. Oftentimes this will include some combination of either cosmetics, conveniences, or on occasion pay to win items. And then there are gacha, which is just another variation of the loot box. This has become more popular in the West in recent years. It is simply a loot box by another name. On top of that, we've got the season pass, which more or less replaced the subscription model, but instead of just saying, hey, give us a monthly sub and you can keep playing the game, they said, hey, give us a monthly sub and we'll give you rewards as a result. Normally, these will come with both a free and a paid track, and the free track is just there to show you what you're missing out on the paid track to incentivize you to buy in. In addition to the cash shops, the loot boxes, and the season passes, expansions are still a thing, another way for us to buy larger chunks of content. This is a carryover from the old method. This time, it's all the other stuff, plus also still having to buy expansions. Microtransactions alone, I could actually just live with, especially with the advent of free-to-play games. Them having alternative means of monetization is necessary. When they're not selling you the game up front, they gotta monetize somehow. They didn't develop the game for 3 to 5 years out of the goodness of their own heart. There were salaries, there were expenses, they have to pay for that. And then of course the entire endeavor is set upon with the goal of making a profit. They didn't do it just to break even. So yes, free-to-play games having cash shops and loot boxes and season passes and maybe selling expansions, it all makes sense. When a game is also sold at a full price with nearly all of those other methods on top of it, that is way less palatable. But even that, just games having optional, it's actually not the microtransactions themselves. Games having ways of spending more money on the game to further future development, or just because it's a business, I would be fine with if that were the end of it. But it's not, because thanks to all of these new ways games have given us to spend money, developers have begun designing the games around incentivizing us to spend, and in turn, they have made the game worse, trying to sell us stuff to make it better. This is the part that really sucks about live service, and there's a whole slew of things. We've got the ways to increase engagement, which is just a nice polished way of saying ways to make our games more addictive. Progression systems in these games that are designed using the exact same methods that are used in casino slot machines. And this is not hyperbole. There are well-known examples of AAA developers, and sometimes not even AAA developers, hiring the same people who design casino slot machines to try to make their games reward systems, to make their progression systems just as equally addictive, to have us constantly engaging. While everyone loves to think that they are impervious to manipulation, gambling industry is as big as it is because it works. The ways that they make gambling addictive in casinos have migrated over into gaming as a hobby. And then remember those convenience features that a lot of games will have for sale? Well, they are added, like I said, because the game itself is made inconvenient, so you want to purchase the thing to make it more convenient. How are games made worse in this manner? Things like the amount of time it takes to progress, either the amount of time it takes for a character to level or for you to unlock tiers in a battle pass, that can be artificially inflated, not for game design purpose, not for making a better, more rewarding feeling experience. No, they want to make it feel inconvenient so that you can purchase the tier skips, so you can purchase the experience boost. Limiting storage space for your RPGs. I don't have enough tabs, let me buy new ones in the shop. Limiting the character slots in games that incentivize you to play a lot of characters. Wow, this is a game that's great for playing alts. My alts let me do more things, but the base game only lets me have 2 to 3 slots. Hey, look at that, I can buy more slots. Probably one of the worst examples are energy systems, literal systems that will deplete very quickly and are required to do something within the game, and guess what? You can purchase the means of replenishing your energy. Beyond inconveniences like that, a lot of these games will also have FOMO-induced systems. Mostly this comes in the form of limited time content. For example, you got season passes that have limited time events and rewards. When a season is present, if you do not play during that season, you will miss out on that reward. I don't want to miss out on that reward, so that's the incentive, that's the FOMO to get you to play each and every season. You've also got things like daily and weekly quests with limited rewards because they are available on limited time scales, and digital shops with limited time sales. Another FOMO-inducing thing is the daily reward system. You know, just like the login bonus. On its face, it's like, oh, they're giving me a free currency, free experience boost, free potions, free whatever just for logging into the game. How nice of them. No, it's not nice. The reason why I should want to re-log into your game every day is because it's fun to play the game. They put in these daily reward bonuses to push you towards logging into the game with the hopes that you stay in the game, that you keep on playing. It's just another form of manipulation that these games are doing. Let's just call it for what it is. And another form of FOMO, let's not forget a lot of those digital shops with limited time sales. Like, oh, this discount on this cosmetic item, these ones and zeros that we're selling you, it's only available for another 24 hours. If you don't buy it for 50% off now, but you want to buy it tomorrow, so that's how they do it. The limited time sales, the limited time everything, that is where a lot of this FOMO-inducing design comes from. And let's, of course, not forget premium currencies. These are meant as a way to create a distance between the exchange of your money with the thing that you're buying within the game. So when you go to purchase a cosmetic skin, you aren't spending $20. No, you're spending 30,000 palladium. It's not real money, but it is real money, and that's the point. It's meant to be a trick. It is meant to make spending easier because you're not actually thinking about the exact dollar amount. It is purposefully deceitful. That is the only reason premium currencies exist. And they try to justify it by saying there's some ways you can earn free premium currency, but that could also just be a separate system. You could have in-game earned currency that could be used in the cash shop, and then you could also have the cash shop show you the amount of money in whatever, be it dollars or whatever your currency is. They could just show you the amount of money the items cost, but they don't. It is purposefully obfuscated to make it more likely that you're going to spend money, and it's gross. Then also other things, like a lot of games have moved to online only, which for me has not been an issue for many years, but there are a lot of people who don't have constant or reliable access to the internet 24/7, and so this shift into online only has been burdensome. But the main reason a lot of these games are online only is because if you're not online, you can't be buying stuff in the cash shop. If you are online, you can. So that's part of the reason for the shift. Now, that's not the only reason for online only. You'll take a look at things like MMOs, for example, and a lot of the game itself is on the developer servers, or having stuff on servers and not locally on our own hardware does help to counteract cheating. But certainly one of the main benefits and driving factors for the online only push is the constant connection to the increased spending that we could potentially do. Beyond all of these things, beyond all of these systems designed to make games worse, we also got a lot of these games launching unfinished, because with the promise of live service and continuous updates and content roadmaps, they say, hey, the game might not be done yet, but it will be done in the future. And all of these things, all of these are examples of how games are designed and made. The game experience, what we end up getting at the end of the day, is being made worse in service of trying to encourage spending more money on the game. And as if that wasn't bad enough, when these games that are made purposefully worse, when they don't do well, when they don't sell, when they don't get critical acclaim, a lot of times they end up getting shut down. Earlier this year, I covered the closure of Babylon's Fall, a live service game that Square Enix launched in 2022. It was a massive failure, reaching a peak concurrent player count of just barely over 1,000 people, and that number only sustained for a couple of days. Before not too long, the new peak was well under 100 players. So what happens when you launch a live service game that not even 100 people are playing? You shut it down, and that is exactly what Square Enix did after just one single year. Other live service games that have shut down this year include Rumbleverse, which initially launched in August 2022. That one is gone and dead. Crossfire X ended its services in May. Back 4 Blood has ended any further support of the game this year. So have the games Marvel Avengers, Knockout City, and Apex Legends Mobile. And those are just some examples of games that I think you even know about. There are way more lesser known live service games closing up shop and shutting down all the time. Over the last 10 years, there's actually been roughly 150 live service games shut down, some of which I actually slightly or even really liked playing. These are games like Hyperscape, Hellgate London, Wildstar, Star Wars Galaxies, Matrix Online, Warhammer Online, EverQuest Next Landmark, and Firefall. All games I played at one point, thought were at least decent, if not good, that just no longer exist. You can no longer legally play these games. The only avenue is illegal through the use of private community-run servers. Now, in almost every one of these examples, the games were shut down because they were no longer financially viable. But that is part of the double-edged sword of the entire live service model. While it is great to have games that in theory get continuous updates, they are also made in a way that once they are no longer earning enough money, they get shut down, as we have seen. And because a vast majority of these are online only, requiring official servers to keep them running, once the developer and publisher are done with the game, they are just no longer available for us to play, even though we paid for them. And I'm not implying that we force companies to support a game that is no longer popular, or more so, is no longer profitable for the company. If a company is losing money on a game because it tanks so bad, of course they're not going to continue to support it. But the current way about how many of these are handled can't be the only answer. I think the industry as a whole should be finding a better way to preserve these games, and also to provide some legal avenue for paying customers, people who bought these games, spent money on microtransactions, provide a way for us to continue playing them even when the publisher has thrown in the towel. The biggest shame of all is that we have lost some otherwise good or great games in the process. Had they not been built on an unsustainable business model that required striking gold to sustain itself, we might still have these games available to play. I might still be able to jump into EverQuest Next Landmark or Firefall or Hellgate London, but I can't. And all of this entire cycle of live service games coming out, being full to the brim of crappy microtransactions and bad game design meant to incentivize spending more money, also launching unfinished, and the ones that fail, which is most of them, inevitably shutting down, just getting game after game after game of this. Yeah, exhausting is the word that I would use. Now, live service games do seem to be on a decline, or at the very least, I expect publishers are becoming increasingly more wary of the model, as evidenced by the growing number of failed attempts and eventual shutdowns, both of the games and, yes, in the worst case, of the studios who made them. A big part of the reason for this is because live service games come with the promise often of being your forever game, the one game you can just keep playing perpetually. The problem with that is you can only reasonably play one of these at a time, maybe two, but honestly, even that, I would say not really. As someone who's gone through his fair share of live service titles, most of them require nearly a full-time job worth of time and effort to get the most out of them. And if one of the main selling points of your game is that it's a forever game, one that you can play daily for months or even years on end, it makes it kind of hard to justify even taking a look at the 100 new live service games that release every single year. And I think for that reason, we're going to start to see more and more companies push away from this because it's just not sustainable. It's not realistic for the player base. While there are a lot of positives that I touched on in this video, I am generally at the point of just being fed up with the live service model. And actually, the original idea for this video was that I just wanted to discuss how happy I've been over the course of this past 1 to 2 years to be moving back into playing more one and done titles, more kind of old school traditional game design. Games like Elden Ring and God of War, Armored Core 6, Baldur's Gate 3, and Starfield, titles that you just buy, you play it, and when you put it down, you're done. And that's fine. You just have an enjoyable experience. You maybe build some gaming memories, and then you move on with your life, right? No cash shop, microtransactions, loot boxes, gacha, subscriptions, battle passes, no FOMO design, nothing, not a lick of any of it coming back into single player or even co-op and multiplayer games, but just ones that aren't built as live services has been so very, very refreshing. Now, with that said, I still really like what live service has to offer from a content perspective. It has been refreshing to balance it out with some good old-fashioned games, but I won't lie that the allure of live service that I first experienced via MMOs, that still very much exists. Like, I still really like the idea of having a game that gets continuously improved and updated, but for all the reasons we mentioned, it's just very, very hard to justify. And all too often today, it's not even just that we're getting a game with the promise of future updates, it's that we're getting games chock full of the monetization. That part alone I could deal with. It's the crappy game design to incentivize engaging with that monetization. I've just had enough of it. I as much as I love MMOs and as much as I love Shared World and a lot of other live service games, it's just way too much. My appetite for it is drastically decreased, and I am so happy to have Starfield right now, to have Baldur's Gate 3, to have Armored Core 6, to have had Elden Ring, and any other games that come along that are bucking this trend. Live service games aren't going away. There is still too much money to be made, and I think there always will be. I just hope we get some less bad design that still has the concept and can deliver on regular updates. Or to put it another way, I know that the bad examples and implementation of live service, they will be around and they will probably be a majority. I just hope we get more good examples and more well-done examples of live service. And yeah, in the meantime, Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3 are going to keep me busy for at least a few months. So that's good. That's it for me today, though. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.